Hi, hello, welcome. I'm doing the mid-year freakout tag. Very late. I was not planning on doing this tag, but honestly, I saw everybody else doing it. Every single other booktuber I follow and I watch it all is doing it, did it, has already done it. So I felt very left out and I need to do it. I need to participate. So anyways, I'm doing it. My only kind of disclaimer for these prompts is that I'm not going to include any rereads and I'm not going to include any manga on this list. I'm only going to talk about new books that I've read and not manga. Okay, so let's get started. The first prompt is best book you've read so far this year. And the best book I've read so far is The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the third and final book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It was incredible. I think I said in my wrap up when I first talked about this book that it was probably going to be my favorite book of the year and definitely one of my new favorite books of all time. It was absolutely incredible. It was a great finale to The Lord of the Rings, a great finale to that story. It gave me so many emotions. It left me with such a sense of completion. It was just an all-around great book. It was exciting. I really loved the characters. I loved Middle-earth. I loved being there. And when I was done with it, I absolutely did not want to be done. I didn't want to leave this world. I didn't want to leave the characters and the story, and it was just so freaking good. It's definitely been my favorite book so far. Okay, the second prompt is best sequel you've read this year. And I could again pick a Lord of the Rings book for this one, but I'm going to branch out. And instead, I'm going to say Wondersmith, The Calling of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is the second book in the Nevermore series. And it was honestly just a great expansion of the world. I think we got to see so much more of Nevermore, so many different aspects of it, like the good and the bad. We got to see some really dark elements in this book. And I think it kept up the tone of the original. It was so magical and whimsical, while also just giving us a great continuation of Morgan's story. The third prompt is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I have a lot of new releases on my list to read, but the one I'm going to choose for this prompt, the one that I'm most excited for, is The Remarkable Retirement of Edna Fisher by E.M. Anderson. This one is just the most intriguing to me. It's going to be like a chosen one story, but with a senior woman that's a protagonist, so it's like an elderly kind of chosen one. I am so excited. I think that's such a fresh take on the chosen one kind of trope, and I'm really excited to see what the story does with it. It just sounds really fun, and it's not too long either, so that's always a plus for me. I'm not really one for the big chunky books. I read some of them, but it's not my preference, so I am just all around very excited for this one. Okay, the fourth prompt is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And of all the releases I have on my TBR, I really only have one or two that have not actually come out yet. So for this prompt, I'm going to choose The Water Outlaws by S.L. Huang. This is going to be an August release, assuming they don't, move it at all. Because at first I was going to choose the fourth Nevermore book, but they pushed that one back now. It's not coming out till 2024, I believe. So The Water Outlaws is my answer for this. This sounds very interesting. It's apparently fantasy, although the plot blurb for it doesn't really mention any fantastical elements. So I don't know if it's just it's set in a secondary world or there's actually kind of fantasy and magic in it. I'm not really sure, but it sounds like it's going to be a very feminist story. It's very female led. And there's going to be kind of a rebellion and maybe a little bit of revenge. And I'm all here for that. I love all those things. That sounds right up my alley. So I am very excited to get to this book. Okay, prompt number 5 is the biggest disappointment. For this prompt, I took it to mean that it's not necessarily the worst book I read, but it just is more kind of the one that defied my expectations the most negatively. So it's something that I had really high hopes for that didn't deliver to me. And for that, I'm going to choose Elric of Melniboné by Michael Moorcock. This book, gosh, I was so excited before I read it. It sounded like it was going to be right up my alley. Everything about it sounded so cool. The plot blurb sounded really exciting. I thought that Elric was going to be a character I really enjoyed and I thought was a lot of fun. But in reality, it was just really boring to me, and I didn't like any of the characters And most of all, what I did not like was the writing style. There was no subtlety about it. It told you everything that you were supposed to think and feel. There was no kind of subtext. There was no imagery. It was just so dry that it was not fun at all to read. And I just did not have a good time with this. Plus, like, it felt like the characters were simultaneously too overpowered, but they also didn't do anything. Like, every single thing that happened in this book, every solution, every way they like beat a villain or anything was a deus ex machina. It didn't make me endeared to the characters very much to see that they couldn't do anything themselves. It's like with this one, like all the ingredients were there, but the combination of them all never captured me. So yeah, it's unfortunate. The 6th prompt is The Biggest Surprise. And the book for that is going to be Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I absolutely did not predict liking this one as much as I did. I have been wanting to read more Neil Gaiman because I love that he writes standalone books. I'm not a huge series person. I really enjoy the standalones. So I thought, well, Neil Gaiman writes a lot of standalones. I'm going to try his. I'm just going to kind of try to go through some of his backlist. And so I was like, okay, let's just do Stardust next. I thought it was just going to be kind of a throwaway book, but oh my gosh, I loved this one so much. I did not see that coming, just how much I loved it. It was just amazing. It was everything that I wanted in kind of a fairy story. It was a beautiful little fairy tale. It was so gorgeously written. The story was honestly really complex while being kind of simple at the same time. He really did a great job with the story. The world building was great. It was like just the right amount of every little aspect, and I just freaking loved it. So yeah, this was totally going to be just like kind of a throwaway shorter book for me, but it absolutely worked in every aspect. Okay, the 7th prompt is favorite new author. This one was kind of difficult for me because, first of all, I haven't read that many new authors this year, and what I have read of new authors, I haven't super loved. Like, I have my favorite authors now, but everything I read from them this year was not like my first introduction to them. So for this prompt, I'm going to choose Lauren James, who wrote The Loneliest Girl in the Universe, which I read a few months ago. I rated it 5 stars. I absolutely freaking loved that one. It was so good. It's a sci-fi, it's a thriller, it's a young adult. So I've only read that one from her, but I would totally be open to reading more from this author because I think she's just seems so talented. So I probably will branch out and buy some of her stuff at some point in the future. So yeah, Lauren James is my answer for favorite new author. Number 8 is newest fictional crush. This one was kind of hard too because, first of all, I don't really develop fictional crushes very much. I can't say that I really had a proper book crush from any of the books I read. So I'm just going to choose kind of the closest thing I have here, which is going to be Captain Samuel Vimes from Guards by Terry Pratchett. Guards is part of the Discworld series, and it's the first in its kind of little sub-series, the City Watch. And Samuel Vimes is the captain of the Ankh-Morpork Night Watch. And he's sort of a mess. You know, he's got some issues. He's got some work to do on himself. But his character growth through the book, we love to see it. His determination, his moral character that he shows. You can see there's a really good person kind of underneath all the layers of cynicism and hardness there. Plus, like, okay, he's a leader. Power is attractive, even if it's only a little bit of power, but still. This is my new crush, Sam Vimes. Yeah. Okay, the 9th prompt is newest favorite character. This one was really hard because I read a ton of great new characters already this year. A close runner-up, I will just say, for this prompt is Samuel Vimes, but I'm actually going to have to give it to Monza Mercado from Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. So Monza was a former mercenary. She was actually the leader, the general of her mercenary band, and she kind of goes on a quest for revenge throughout the book. And I just loved seeing her character arc in this book. I loved her internal journey throughout this quest for revenge. I found it very captivating. It was just all around really good. I liked how she grew. I liked her at the end of the book. I liked her at the beginning of the book. I felt for her. She was a tough lady. There was even stuff about her that I didn't like, you know, but even if I didn't like it, I still thought it was interesting and it all blended really well to her character and her nuances. I just liked all the facets of her. I liked reading about them. I liked learning about them. So all around, I just have to say that Monzo is probably my favorite character of this year so far. Okay, the 10th prompt is a book that made you cry. I have not cried at many books this year, only like 2 of the almost 30. So this one I'm going to have to give to Return of the King. It makes another appearance on this list. But oh my gosh, dude. This book made tears stream down my face multiple times. I was listening to the audiobook, and so I was listening to it while I worked. I work from home. And me just multiple times I was just sitting there trying to do my job, and I'm just sobbing, absolutely sobbing. It's all just God. It just got me right in my heart. It made me cry so much. So that is without a doubt my answer for this prompt. All right, I had to change out the battery, so the camera angle might be a little bit different. So that's the explanation. Okay, so the 11th prompt is book that made you happy. I'm gonna give 2 answers for this, just because there were so many books that made me happy so far this year. So this is my solution for, instead of including all of them, I'm gonna do at least 2. First of all is Guards by Terry Pratchett. As I mentioned before, this is an entry in his Discworld series. This book was so fun. It has such wonderful characters that are just so quirky and just very fun. It's got a really creative setting and premise. It's got so much humor. I laughed out loud so many times reading this book, and I just had an overall really great time. It made me smile so often while I was reading it. And the second book for this question is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. As I said before, I absolutely loved this book. It was another one that just made me smile so much because I was so happy that it was doing so many things that I really love well. Fairies and kind of fairy stories are something that have been a little bit twisted in pop culture because of, certain authors. So I've missed seeing fairies, like traditional kind of fairy stories. So I was just really happy at what Neil Gaiman did with Stardust. It was just so good. It was just so magical all around. And again, with this one, just like with Guards, I had such a great time while reading it. So those are my 2 answers. Second to last prompt. Number 12 is most beautiful book you bought this year. I've only bought like kind of a handful of books. I haven't bought that many. So I think for this prompt, I'm going to choose One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I just really like the cover for this one. It's not my favorite cover ever. I've had other books I've read this year whose covers I have actually liked a little bit better. But as far as ones I've bought, I do think this is my favorite. I really like the composition of it. I like the little details in the cover. I like the colors of it. I like how the colors all fit together. It's very cool. It's very pretty. It's fun to look at. So that's going to be my answer for this. Although I am going to add a caveat here because I really just want to mention Julia and the Shark by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. It's such a beautiful book. Like, look at the cover for it. It is so beautiful. It's a middle grade book, and I've read it recently, and I just absolutely loved the cover. So I really just wanted to include it, even though it doesn't technically fit the prompt of a book that I've bought, but it is a book I read this year. So that's my second little mini answer. And the 13th and final prompt is, what books do you still need to read by the end of this year? And I actually mentioned these in my goals video that I just posted a few weeks ago. So I kind of go into more depth all the books that I set for myself to read this year, but there's only 2 novels still left. I still have a little bit of manga I need to do, but as far as novels, I only have 2 left that I'd like to get to before the end of this year. One is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. I really wanted to start The Wheel of Time this year. I don't know if I'm actually going to get to it, but there's still a lot of the year left, so I'm hopeful. It's just that it's such a big book, and it's also part of a huge series, so I'm like really putting it off because I'm intimidated, and I don't know whether I'm going to like it or not. Like, I just have all these feelings of doubt, so I'm putting it off. So it's kind of like a Schrodinger's cat situation. It's like, I like it until I read it. I'm a little nervous, but I'm very interested in The Wheel of Time. So yeah, and the second book is Witch King by Martha Wells. I wanted to read more Martha Wells ever since I started the Murderbot Diaries, and the premise for this one sounds kind of cool, so I really want to read it. So yeah, those are the 2 books I really hope to read by the end of this year. So that's it. That was the mid-year freakout tag. Again, it's super late, but anyways, I did it. It's over. I feel accomplished now. Anyways, that is all from me. Until next time, I guess just have a really great day. Farewell.